When you're modeling in NURBS, you're probably going to spend a lot of time turning curves into surfaces. Now, there's a number of different ways to do that, and I'm going to go through and just kind of go through all the different ways that we can do that in Max, so that way you have a good firm foundation for when we start actually building some complex objects. We're going to go ahead and open a file. It's on our desktop. Oops. Under exercise files, and it's called under NURBS intro. It's called surfaces. Now, this doesn't have any surfaces in it because we're actually going to be building some surfaces, but it does have a lot of different curves in it. Actually, I've hidden most of the curves, and we're going to unhide them as we need them. This first one just has a single curve here. I'm going to go ahead and click on it, and let's go over to our Modify panel. Now, we've gone through some of the options here. In fact, I'm going to go into my perspective window here. I'm going to maximize that. We know how to create a CV surface, create a point surface, and we know about all the different copies and offsets and that sort of thing. The first type of surface that we can create, it's called an extrude surface. So go ahead and click on Extrude Surface, and then click on the curve, and then drag. And what this does is it basically just extrudes the curve along one axis and allows you to basically allows you to create a very simple surface. Now, if we go over to here under NURBS curve, you notice we have three types of objects. We have the curve itself, the curved CVs, and the surface. So if we took the curved CVs and we move them, you can see how it affects the extrude. So the actual surface itself is related to this curve. Now, if you wanted to, you could take the surface, select it, and just like with curves, we can convert the surface to a CV or a point surface, or to a loft if you wanted to. And we can also make independent and do that sort of thing. So, for example, if I made it into an independent surface, okay, now what you get is you get surface CVs, and now you can actually even further change the shape. But the relation to the original curves is broken. So I'm going to go ahead and select this and delete it. Now we're going to unhide our next object, and we're going to go through lathing. So we're going to go right-click on your perspective window, do unhide by name, and we're going to go lathe curve is the one we want to unhide now. And I'm going to go ahead and select this curve. And again, our when we highlight our Modify panel, our little floater comes up. And the next thing we want to do is create what's called a lathe surface. Very simple. If you've done a lathe with spline curves, it's almost identical. Click that, click on the curve, and it lathes it automatically. And again, if you notice here, it's actually created a surface. Now, if we scroll down here, we can actually select the surface. And if we scroll down, we have our parameters for our lathe here. So we can lathe it over anything from 0 to 360. We can lathe it in any direction. I think Y seems to work the best. We can also lathe it just like with all the other max operators through minimum, center, maximum. I'm going to put it back on minimum, and so on. And again, this is relational. So if I change the original curve, then the lathe changes. Very much the same. Another surface we want to look at is called the cap surface, and it's perfect for when we're doing this lathe because we actually have this hole, and if we wanted to plug that hole, we could do it by using a cap surface. So actually, if you go here to create cap surface, click on that, and it'll only let you do it on the top of here. So if you click there, it'll create what's called a cap, and now it will go ahead and just basically put a top on that. So for example, if you wanted to create a cylinder that has two ends out of NURBS, you could do it and cap that cylinder. Now, unlike polygonal modeling or spline modeling, you actually have to explicitly say that something is capped, and then our NURBS modeler will go ahead and cap it. Now, the NURBS cap itself is a separate surface. So if I move that surface, it's actually stuck to my my lathe here, but it is a separate surface. I'm going to right click, I'm going to click up here, and then we're going to go ahead and delete this, and let's move on to our next one. I'm going to go right click here, do unhide by name, and let's do ruled curves. Now ruled curves, if you actually click on here, is just a very simple way to create a more complex surface. So really what a ruled curve is let's go ahead, it's very simple. You have two curves, create ruled surface here, click on one curve, click on the other, and what it does is it just draws, it's almost like an extrude, except the second curve can be different from the first. So really what you've got is you've got a square patch here, and you can have different curves. So you've got basically a four-sided patch, and we're defining two of those sides, and these two sides here are going to be straight. So that's how you create a ruled curve, and it's very similar to what's called a U-loft. Now, a U-loft is essentially this with more curves. So all I really have to do is let's go ahead and, I'm just going to go ahead and over here to surface, and let's just delete this surface here. And then I'm just going to copy this curve. I'm going to go head over here to curve, or if you want, you can right click, and this, you can actually move through it here in the in this quad menu here. And if I just hold down the shift and drag, I can copy the object as an independent copy. And so let's make a couple of more curves here. And now to create a U-loft, all you have to do is just select all the curves. So I can start here at the bottom, 2, 3, 4. Again, it's just like the ruled surface, except that you have more curves. And because you have more curves, you have more control over, for example, the edge here. You could actually move these out here and create a non-straight edge, and so on and so forth. So, and you can create something, for example, if I push that way, you're going to have pretty much a three-dimensional surface. So that's pretty much the U-loft. Now we have other types of surfaces as well. So what we've done is we've been defining surfaces basically along one axis. If you wanted to, you could define it as well along two axes. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and delete it. And let's unhide one rail curves. Now what a rail surface is, I'm going to go ahead and select this. What a rail surface is it's pretty much like a U-loft, except we have a curve that actually defines one edge of that surface. So how I create a one rail sweep is I go over here, click on that, I picked my edge curve, and then I pick my loft curves. Now, if I look at that from the front, that's probably the best place to look at this. And I select my curved CVs. Notice how I've actually got these CVs are actually determining how both sides are working. So it's almost like a ribbon or something like that. And what you have is this is kind of determining the both the left and right side of this ribbon. Whereas these curves here determine kind of like the inside of that ribbon. And again, you can pull these out in 3 dimensions, that sort of thing, and create all sorts of fun shapes. Now we have one more type of rail that we want to talk about here. I'm going to go ahead and select this and delete it. And then let's go unhide, let's go 2 rail curves. And essentially, it's the same as the one-rail curve. I'll go ahead and select this. Except we have curves to define both left and right. Rather than one curve defining left and right, we have a separate curve for each. So go ahead and create a two-rail sweep. Select left, right, and then we'll go through our little loft here. And there we go. Very simple two-rail sweep here. And again, here, let's look at it from the front. If I start moving the curves on the outside basically define the outside. So really what we're doing is we're getting these curves here on the inside determine what's on the inside. Now there is not a direct correlation. So for example, if I move this down, it's going to pull this down, but if I move this out, it doesn't move it out. There's a few rules there, so you kind of have to just experiment with this and kind of see how it works so you kind of get the feel for it. Typically what I do is I snap these 2 points together anyways, so you're not going to really have any problem with these corners being out of sync or anything like that. So those are some of the basic NURB surfaces that we can create. There are also some other surfaces called blend and trim surfaces, and we're going to go ahead and talk about that. And we're also going to talk about these other curves here called curves on surface in the next little lesson. So let's go ahead and move on to that.